Meeting. We're going to have an invocation by Pastor Murphy, led by the Pledge of Allegiance from by Commissioner Zimbauer. Can we all stand, please? Pastor?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And just want to say this is an
Pastor
honor.
Murphy, can you move the microphone over, please?
Oh, yeah.
Do I need a mic? Oh, yes. Oh, I can hear myself even now. Well, praise the Lord. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to come and to pray over this meeting. I appreciate it. Let's just pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you today offering our thanks unto you, an offering, a sacrifice of thanksgiving unto you, Lord God, as we invoke your presence for this meeting. Lord, we stretch forth your hand, Lord God. Please stretch forth your hand of blessing on our county commissioners and help us in our search for a new county manager over Seminole County. Bless our leaders with special inspiration, revelation, and insight for direction and guidance for all of the good. Grant them wisdom and grace for the heavy burdens they'll carry, that they may maintain purity of their intentions and godliness in their convictions. Bring clarity and grant wisdom to fully address the agenda today by all who participate in the process of selection. May the new manager be a person of integrity and excellence, a person of faith in God, a person who is gifted in making right decisions that will work in the best interest of the people. And Lord, bless us with peace. Let peace prevail in our communities as we unite to make Seminole County a safe and prosperous place for all people of color and religion to live together in peace, a place where we can all worship freely according to our faith and work in harmony for a better future. May brotherly love and genuine care for one another flourish throughout our county. I ask all this for the good of the people, in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Murphy, Commissioner Zimbauer, thank you. This special meeting is about the process and the interview process regarding the county manager's search. I'd like to turn it over to our acting county manager, Mr. Applegate. Mr. Applegate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Commissioners. As you note, as you said, today is the day for the interviews, the public interviews, and we, at the end of the three interviews, members of the public who are present will have the chance to speak as well. And with that being said, I'm going to ask Bob Slavin to come forward and introduce our first candidate. Bob? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, we're not introducing you to people you don't know. You have spent some time with them. So first candidate today is Doherty. He's the interviews are in alpha order. The three candidates agreed that they would not, although they have the legal right to be here under your laws, they would not. That was courtesy to you folks and to them. So I'm going to be quiet and let Doc come to the podium.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I appreciate the pastor's prayer of integrity and excellence and faith, and that's kind of hopefully I came across each of you in my conversation about some of those issues. My name is Doc Doherty, and I appreciate the opportunity to meet before you guys this morning.
Mr. Chairman, if anyone has questions.
Anyone has any questions for the candidate? Commissioner Herr.
How about I do the kickoff question? Why Seminole and why you?
All right. getting off the airplane and even driving around yesterday, I went to all the 7 cities and made my way over to Geneva also. It really is feeling like coming home. I was born and raised in Allentown, Pennsylvania, but spent 15 years down in between Hillsborough County and Palm Beach County, where all 5 of our babies were raised. And 4 of them are doing the research, and we're ready to move to Seminole right this moment. I say only 4 because the 5th one actually we moved her into Melbourne a month ago, so I'll be visiting her tonight. So they're all Florida people, and myself included. But even before applying for this opportunity, I spent a lot of time watching your council meetings, commission meetings, and doing the research on the community itself. What I saw was a group of commissioners that don't always agree on every issue, but certainly it's a collegial environment. I saw staff coming to the microphone and putting professional presentations together, and saw the relationship between the commission and staff, and that's very attractive to me. Even yesterday, as I met with the department heads, just they're getting along together. Just before I was asked the first question, I was able to watch and see how they handle themselves. Overall, spending time in Hillsborough County and seeing the untethered growth that went on and the congestion, looking at Seminole County. I love the rural boundary. I mentioned that to a few of you during our meeting. The idea of having that kind of undeveloped land in Florida for long-term, hopefully, is also extremely attractive to me. You've got the cross between the cities with amenities as well as the country living, which of course goes to the tagline of the natural choice. Again, very attractive to me overall. Myself, I mentioned to each of you, I believe, the ethical foundation that I work with of being fair, be honest, tell the truth, keep your word, exercise integrity, and that's what I bring to public administration. As I may have mentioned, you won't see me on the front page of the newspaper doing anything but holding an award, maybe with an employee that's just been recognized for something. I'm a very straight person as far as keeping good government in place. I don't believe in special deals or special favors for anybody. Everybody's treated fairly across the board, and I explained that to the staff from the start, that if everyone just follows that foundation, we're going to be in a great place. I also believe in excellence in everything we do. To go back, put a draft together, let's review it. Several people can review it to make sure what we're putting out is a quality product representing the commissioners. Stability, I believe, is something that I really bring also in each of my positions I've had. I believe my staff would assure you that there may have been things going up and down before I got there, but when I got there, we balanced it out to be very calm. There's always going to be outliers in public administration, but there's no reason to be every day being up or down. Best advice I ever received was an old football coach. After a game that we lost, we were expecting him to be very upset and excited, and he came in and the first thing he said was, well, you can't get too high off the highs or too low off the lows. And to me, it's such great advice for the fact that in public administration, this too shall pass. So I believe I add some stability to not only the staff, but the commissioners, knowing that advice that I'm giving isn't from a personal agenda. It's what's best for the community overall. Because really, when you get down to public administration, it really is just customer service. I believe I was talking to Commissioner Zembauer. We talked about benchmarking for a moment. Benchmarking is very important for statistics, for budgets. If you have so many more ambulance calls, maybe you need more ambulances, maybe more staff in that area. But benchmarking is great for maybe a warehouse in Wichita as they're selling widgets, but this is customer service when you're looking at public administration. You can't really calculate the time spent just meeting with a resident and making sure you can either listen to their issues where we can change our mind and do better, or be able to explain to them after hearing their issues. I talked to my great police chief the other day. We were just talking about benchmarking, and he made a point of one of his officers just last week pulled over from road patrol and called balls and strikes for a bunch of young kids playing baseball at the local field. How do you benchmark that? But to me, that's what we should be doing. That's the customer service across all of our departments to be the best that we can be. And I think each of those issues I mentioned, that's what I would bring to Seminole County.
Thank you. Next, Commissioner Lockhart.
Thank you for our time yesterday. It really was very valuable. You shared, and I'm sure you shared with all of the commissioners, some collateral material, and of course, looking at your resume, it is evident that you are a very hands-on manager.
Correct.
You're doing a lot yourself.
Yes.
And so one of the questions I had for you yesterday was how can you scale that and let go of some of those things that you've been doing yourself and incorporate 1,500 employees?
Yes, and I appreciated that question and given a chance to talk about that. I made that change once before. This would be my 6th community I'm in. As I was thinking, even driving in this morning, I worked for a town, a commission, worked for a city, that transferred to a county, became a consolidated government, a county, city, and now back to a county again. So I've gone up and down with responsibilities. One of the great changes for me already was experience going from Georgia down to Hillsborough County, where the staff was much larger, expectations were much larger. I found it to be actually more exciting having more staff, because although I loved being hands-on and doing some of the things that I've done, and we talked about strategic plans, sustainability plans, I love the fact of you are way past that. You know, I had to bring to some of the different communities I was in, it was the first time they've ever seen some of the projects and reports I put together. So I spend my nights, weekends, holidays dedicated to this job. The fact of having some staff where I can look and say, have you done this? Well, yeah, we've got 4 versions of this already. We've done it over the last 20 years. That just frees me up to be more the visionary, that I am. Big picture work, but at the same time, the positives of being able to do all those things is I've done them already. So when I meet with somebody, it's not where I say, well, I read a book about that. I've actually done those hands-on things. Kind of like here in the county, I have a constitutional officer up there, a court system that goes through our budget. But here we have a sheriff. Obviously, up there, I have a police department, so I'm directly involved in police issues. I believe I can speak with the sheriff, in more detail about what they do and what their expectations and equipment needs are, because I'm actually doing that, right now. Same with the assessors. I have a tax assessor up there that we deal with directly under me. Here, we have a constitutional officer. So I think the benefit that I really bring, and I think I mentioned each of you, I have quite a diverse resume, a little bit of everything in all directions, and some things that aren't even on the resume that make me unique. It also gives me the ability to meet and talk to anybody almost about anything. But the fact that I'd have more staff and possibly more money in those areas, communication especially, special events and festivals and things, I put them all on, having staff to do that and be able to meet with them for a moment and suggest, here's some ideas that I've done in the past. I'm definitely a hands-on involved person, not a micromanager though. That's, to me, micromanaging is you just get exactly what you ask for. I'm looking for any ideas from anybody, and I expressed that to my cabinet meeting right from the start, that anyone at the lowest level has an idea, let's take a look at it. I'd love to say yes to everything. If I say no, I'm always going to explain why no, and that's one thing I assure all the staff. Anybody can come speak to me at any time. I have a very open door policy. There's no reaction negatively towards any staff member that wants to work their way up. I explained to the cabinet meeting yesterday I had with your department heads, I appreciate a flat hierarchy. It's basically me and then everybody else. I understand when it comes to reporting, we do the pyramid. But at the same time, if we have a lower level employee that's finding a hostile work environment here, or finding themselves doing things maybe inappropriately, getting on a 20-foot ladder, being directed to do unsafe things, I want to make sure that every employee here is treated well, treated fairly, and has a positive work environment. And I've been in places where it feels like you talk to the boss above you, they have no interest in passing it on, and it just stops. And as much as I want to run around the community and tell them, everybody, what a great county this is, I'm just talking because everyone below me says he has no idea what's going on. I like to know generally what's going on, but as my department heads would attest, I do not call them up and direct them what to do. Talking yesterday with the fire chief a little bit, one of the statements I made was also, you'll find I will not push through permits. If someone says, I've got a buddy, we've got a permit to push through, I got to be very honest publicly and say that. I will call and inquire why the permit hasn't gone through if there's a reason, but no department head has ever received a call from me, fire marshals, building department, or anything that has me saying, you know what, let's get this through. A commissioner's asking for this is important. calls of potholes out in front of a friend's business, of course, we're taking care of a pothole on the street. But as far as special favors, that's just not my style, and that goes back to my ethical foundation of being fair and honest across the board, and I expect that of the staff. So what I think it does is add a lot of stability to the staff themselves, because they understand it's not just going to be politics today, it's going to be good governments, and that's what I bring.
Thank you. Commissioner Zimbow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this pamphlet you put together, your 30, 60, 90 first-year plan.
Great, thank you.
So based on that, what do you perceive the largest challenge to Seminole County government as you see it, and what work you've done to research?
Well, affordable housing, I think, is one just all throughout Florida. We're not quite sure what's going to happen with inflation and things over the next couple of years, but I was reading up on the Sandusky Fund of the rating through Tallahassee, and no one's immune to that. We see that in Michigan. Lansing likes to take away from productive programs that we have up there. But it looks like the governor, I believe, just signed something for the hometown heroes to actually start to replace that a little bit to help with closing costs and down payments for important positions that are not the highest paid. But overall, as Florida continues to grow, prices are always going to grow. I think affordable housing is something special that we need to keep focused on. I think the rural boundary, I think, is an issue. I saw that the commission won the last lawsuit from the person who competed, I guess, or fought most for it, and hopefully that's a stage set for long term, but I believe that more people will come as they look at great territory out Geneva and the eastern area. I think that's probably long term always going to be a fight to keep that up, but at the same time, that's what's going to make Seminole so different than any other county around. I think Sunrail is, a lot of people can look at public transportation as not the most important thing, but I look at it as you couldn't build it 50 years from now. The property wouldn't be around to be able to do it. And the connectivity, when you're looking at even more development throughout these communities, not just Seminole, but in Orange County also, and north, that is going to be a valuable use in the future. So I look at Sunrail as a long-term benefit, not something that benefits everybody immediately today. But at the same time, through my research, I saw the development that's been done around the stations. And I saw one quote was about $2.5 billion in development. And there's your economic driver for the communities that at least have the Sunrail. Traffic, obviously, is a little bit what I just talked about in Sunrail, but traffic is always an issue. And there's different things we could look at as far as control in that area, but that's always going to be something that's going to be a problem long-term for the community. Finance and government is always a big issue. I was going through the budget, and I saw, I believe on page 45, there's a graphic that is daunting. But again, that's in numbers today, and that's long-term, and most finance departments don't like to show big numbers. They tend to like to show lower numbers, which is perfect, because you should be conservative and try to live within your means, and if things are better, we're better off as a community. But that's also always an issue. Salaries for employees, I've of course read up this past year, and with the commission that has to deal with that, and that's competing. That's again in any community. Neighboring communities are interested in stealing or pilfering or borrowing, taking other employees from the county, depending on the salary. So that would be something I'd be interested in looking at, is just the salary structure, compensation study. I believe you're in the process of doing that now, but I think that's very significant. But it's not just money for employees, it's usually a positive working environment. And I believe that's something that I bring to the community. So, not that just being happy every day at work sure beats a lot of money. Well, it certainly helps. If you're not willing to make that jump at this moment, you'd certainly like to feel good about your workplace and safety and security there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you,
other
Mr. Chairman.
questions? Any other questions?
Doc,
Commissioner Constantine?
thank you. One of the things that I was most impressed about was the family unit that you have developed along with your wife
Yes.
and your children. Would you just spend a moment or two
Sure.
of your time about that?
I'd love to do that. My wife and I met on a blind date 27 years ago. and people still think it's a bad deal for her. She was a certified teacher down in Palm Beach County as a full teacher, and as the babies came, we met on the blind date, and we talked about actually having 5 children close in age. On the actual date itself, we both agreed that that was something important to us. A year later, we were married. A year or so later, we were moved down to Palm Beach County from Pennsylvania, both born and raised up there. And the babies started to come, one after another, 5 and 6 years. So today, I'll be going down to Melbourne tonight to visit our daughter. She just graduated from Florida Gators in 4 years with a master's, straight A's in software engineering and computer science. The second one we have is our daughter is on a ROTC scholarship, Army, at Eastern Michigan, which is just between Detroit and Ann Arbor, just west of Detroit. She's going to be a senior, so she'll be a lieutenant in the Army in the next year after that. Our big boy is at West Point. He got accepted a couple years ago, nomination through Congress. He's going to be a junior this year. The next boy is Carter, is going to be there 2 weeks from now. When I fly back, we're going to be dropping him off at West Point, so we're going to have two young men at West Point. And then our last child is going to be a senior this year. Larissa, also known as Baby, she hates that. But she just finished West Point's week. It's a special week. Before you go into your senior year, you can spend time at the academy. It's still a 10% acceptance rate, but she was accepted at West Point a week ago. This week was Air Force, and next week she's going to the Naval Academy as her consider preparation of going into a service academy herself. So we're going to pick her up at Naval Academy on the 23rd, I believe, and dropping off our next boy at West Point a couple days later. So my wife has done a fantastic job, and I say all that because we actually end up homeschooling the kids all the way through. In Florida, you can actually play sports like Tim Tebow without actually going to high school. Michigan, when we arrived up there, the rule in Michigan is you have to take 66% of your classes to play sports. Well, our children wanted to play sports, so the issue is, though, you can't take core classes. You can only take electives in Michigan. So our kids have gone to the high school to take electives, simple courses. Then they go home to mom for chemistry and algebra and trigonometry and chemistry and everything else that goes on. So when I say she's done a great job, she really has raised them well. Family that prays together stays together. We're active in the church, and they had a nice honor at the church the other day for Carter's last Mass of altar serving as he gets ready to take off to the academy. But I was talking to my mom not too long ago. She's known as the Iron Maiden, my mother. Periodically, you'll hear our mayor at the end of a meeting thank the Iron Maiden for watching from Pennsylvania, even though we're up in Michigan. She watches everything. She's involved in watching the community from a distance. I don't do social media, just to be clear. You won't see me answer things on social media. I have a LinkedIn, but I don't have a Facebook. I'm not sure how to like things. Commissioners tend to send me posts of things that are put out there, but I work in the reality world of our government, and I can't spend a lot of my time out there. But I said to my mother at one point, I said, I've been really fortunate to be part of 2 great families. And she said, 2 great families? I was like, well, your family and my family. I have 4 brothers and sisters also. And it's been fortunate, though, although I understand I have empathy for people that have issues and family issues and relationships. Family dynamics, starts at the top and works down. And so a great family I grew up with, brothers and sisters. We're still very tight in the 50s and just turning 60. And then my current family. In fact, my brother surprised me the other day. He said, are you done with your interviews yet? And I just came out, and I said, yeah, I'm just finished now. Finished with Commissioner Herr. And he goes, I've already left. I'm at the Sanford Airport. He said, I was waiting outside the building for you. And he said, I walked across the street for the park waiting for you to come out. And I had no idea he was even here. So, yeah, that's a tight family, and I think that's very important. It's very special to have that. And our kids, when people say 5, they must argue all the time. They're best friends, our children. So that's one of the proudest things is those kids will be best friends forever. So good things are happening. But it's all because of my wife, not me. Thank you for asking that. I appreciate that.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. Brian, turn it back over to you.
If there are no other questions, Mr. Doherty, thank you very much. And Bob, if you will, bring down Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you for your time.
We have, excuse me, speaking on turn, we have advised the candidates that they're free to leave after their interviews, and if we need to reach them, we can do it by phone. Is that acceptable to you?
That's
Sir,
fine.
any objection to that, Commissioners? That's correct. You're fine.
Then let me just say one more thing to Mr. Doherty. Let me ask one more question. Thank you for your indulgence. So, that solid foundation of family, I mean, I certainly can see that relating to how you deal with your job as now city manager. But, I mean, in a bigger picture, as you go through, your every aspect of your day, how do you how do you delegate responsibility as opposed to how do you decide what you delegate and what you actually do hands-on?
I think the most important, I mentioned this to the department heads yesterday, was if it's directly affecting the BOCC and my name is directly connected to it, I'm going to be much more involved in it to make sure that it is done correctly. As far as the departments themselves, they're professionals that we hire. They should be able to lead their departments the best they can, come to me with ideas and suggestions, and I'm willing to run with it because that's what they do all day long. I'm not here to be territorial and make sure that they receive my approval for everything. Priorities itself is, give an example, I love my workplace. Even the community I'm in up there, I have great mayor, great council, we're working well together. The community's wonderful, Midwestern values. But at the same time, and my family itself, but work, as the kids all know too, this is what helps us eat. So as much as I work nights, weekends, holidays, even at home, I always have time for the kids. I will always take a phone call for them at any time. But probably one of the not easiest or toughest questions was I was putting on a fireworks festival 4th of July, and our oldest boy, the junior at West Point right now, was due on the 4th of July. So we induced him on July 1st to make sure that the baby was born and I was at the 4th of July festival because it was my event. You can't postpone 4th of July. People say, "Ooh, that's a little rough." Not necessarily. The baby was coming anyway, but the fact was, I had to be at work and make sure. I can't just walk away from that kind of responsibility. So I look at everything almost holistically. There's nothing where I just go, these are important to me, but these aren't. Everything's important when it comes to representing the community itself. I just kind of have generally a keen sense of what's the highest priority. And people always say, pick a list of 10, what's the most important? Well, they're all important, but let's find out which one really is more significant for my time and involvement. And I think over 25, 26 years in public administration, I've got a pretty good sense of how to work these things through. And it's, my objective is to champion your causes as a commission and certainly behind closed doors offer any advice I could one way or the other. But at the same time, as staff comes with some new innovative ideas, and I'm supportive of that, hopefully the commission supports that also and champions the staff's ideas. So I never feel like I've got a bad work-life balance and priorities and decision-making. I really feel like I've been fair to both, but certainly the job's super significant. And the kids have seen that in the work ethic. Just as a side note, I grew up in the pharmacy business. My father owned Doherty's Pharmacy, self-ownership. We'd go to Jersey Shore for 1 week a year from Allentown, Pennsylvania, and he'd come down Wednesday night because he couldn't afford to have another pharmacist work. 7 days a week. We'd go to church at 7 o'clock on Sunday morning, and he'd go to the drugstore from 9 to 9. 12 hours a day, every day for 7 days a week, and did that for half his career, about 47 years, until he finally closed and retired a few years ago and passed a few years ago. But that's the work ethic that we grew up with, my brothers and sisters and I, from the time we were 2 or 3 cleaning shelves to the time of counting out pills and working the register. So it's always been kind of work first, but keep your family involved in the workspace also. So sorry if that was a little too long of an answer.
Commissioner Hurd.
Just as a point of clarification, where was the July 4th event?
That was West Palm Beach area.
And how many residents did you expect to have attend?
We had everybody, because it was I created the day before or the week before fireworks festival. When I first arrived there, they had West Palm Beach, our city, North Palm, everybody was shooting fireworks off the exact same time. So the next year, of course, I wanted to do it the Saturday before. Commissioners were a little concerned about that as the town commission because of the fact we're going against mom and apple pie. How can you shoot fireworks off on July 27th or June 27th? But I said, if we're going to corner the market here and try to draw others in for economic development, we can't just compete head to head. So we ended up getting any vendor we needed because they weren't doing anything the week before. We got a better deal on the fireworks show, and tens of thousands of people came into our park, where the year before it was a couple thousand people maybe. So we actually opened up our city to everybody. And one year, Lawton Childs was governor. I remember they were shutting down fireworks because concerned about fires in the wooded areas. Of course, we're between a few condos. We weren't worried about forest fires. We were the first in the state to shoot off the show, and it actually made state news across Florida of this small town in Palm Beach County was able to shoot off fireworks with no fire, so maybe it's safe for everybody else. And
That brings up the point, ladies and gentlemen.
Commissioner Constantine?
Thank you, Commissioner, that Altamont Springs is going to do the Red Hot Boom again this year on July 3rd, which is, they kind of started that whole routine of doing it early with the 200,000 people that are there or more.
Awesome.
I never want to say last question, you never know, but how do you address the concern that you are the head of a town of 27,000, and you want to come to a community of nearly 500,000?
yes. And my last position was over in Hillsborough County, where it was 1.3 million
But you
people.
weren't at the head of it.
No, not the head. No. Larger staff assists in that type of answer, because right now I have department heads and they have special jobs to do, obviously. But I believe I mentioned a couple of commissioners, I love dealing with residents. I love dealing with angry residents for the fact that I can listen to them and maybe that changes our opinion, or maybe I can convince them of a better deal. I'm not concerned as far as size. I've moved around now, as I mentioned, this will be my sixth and hopefully my last community. I'm definitely looking at this as a long-term opportunity, because I think I mentioned a couple of commissioners was, where do you go from here? I mean, you're the coach at Penn State. Where do you go from there, or Florida State? This would be a final position, and I think you'll see very quickly that I adapt to any size organization, any issues with commissioners, and getting the commissioners to work together. I'm definitely not a counter. I don't look for 3. I look for 5 as much as possible, and as you'll see, in the past few years, we just had a 6-1 vote up there for the first time in a while, and it was really more of a protest vote overall. It wasn't against the product. I like to bring everyone together as much as possible. So I don't have any concerns of a larger budget or a larger staff whatsoever, but I will be the social butterfly for you, representing the community out there and living by the ethical foundation I put together. So I think overall, you'll find that there's really nothing that's over my head, and the diversity of my resume really shows I can meet and speak about anything at any time. So hopefully that can settle any concerns. But
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
okay, thank you again.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Have a good day.
Mr. Chairman, I sent Melanie up to get next.
Since we know the elevator's slow,
You want to take a 5?
could we take a 5-minute break?
We'll take a 5-minute break.
Thank
Desmond.
you.
Dais. We can have the board come back to the dais. Mr. Applegate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob, next introduction, please.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, your next candidate is Steve Howard. Steve is currently the county administrator in Camden County, Georgia, and some of you may remember him. He worked for you prior to that for a short while at any rate. Steve?
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Well, I'm back. So I stayed these other 3 days too, so that's maybe good news for me.
Is there an opening statement you'd like to make?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity to be back in Seminole County. It's amazing to see new faces, old faces. There's been change.
Wait, you just looked at me when you said that.
Well, that's right, yeah. I'll have to watch my language. But it is good to be back in Seminole County, and again, it was an amazing opportunity just to be here today. So thank you for this opportunity to be in front of you tonight, today.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Commissioner Hur.
I'll be consistent. So tell us why Seminole and why you for Seminole?
Well, Seminole, as you all know, I was here before, about 15 years back, but I think you have an amazing opportunity, and I think Seminole, I always say if it's good, I think it's great, but you have an opportunity, I think, to be even greater. And that's a team approach, but you have to have a shared vision to do that. That motivates me. And I was very upfront and candid with each commissioner. If you want to raise the bar, I'm all in. If that's not what you're wanting to do, I'm out. But I think there's lots of opportunities. Staff, I think there's some staff here today, a lot of opportunity. I engaged with them yesterday. So I think you have lots of opportunity to not only implement best practices, to become the best practice. So I think you're really at an amazing moment in time right now to actually do some amazing things here. So that interests me and that motivates me, and that's why I'm here today. And I enjoyed Seminole 15 years ago. That's why I'm back again today, here today as well.
Thank you. Next question, Commissioner Lockhart.
So we talked a little bit yesterday about the scale of where you've been, where you are, and coming to an organization that's essentially 5 times more the number of employees and a significantly larger budget. How do you scale what you're doing now to an organization and a community this size?
I always say the problem's a problem. So if I have a problem in Camden, the problem's a problem in Seminole. So to me, it doesn't matter. You have to come up with solutions. It's bigger zeros. You have more employees. Typically, your budget here, most of it's going to be salaries. That's typical, so it gets bigger that way. But you address it the same way I do in Camden as I do in Seminole County, or I did at the Polk County Sheriff's Office where we had 1,800 employees there, 3,000 inmates. You do it the same way, systematic approach. You zero in on it and come up with solutions and work together with a shared vision, to implement that. So that's the same course of action I would take here, whether I was in Seminole, or if it's in another county, a smaller city, it doesn't matter. It's the same solutions, the same way that you would address a problem in Camden as I'd address it here in Seminole County. I'd be focused, shared vision, collectively reach consensus, and get it done.
Thank you. Next question, Commissioner Zimbauer.
Tell us a little bit about your interaction with the private sector in your current position and some of the accomplishments you've done on behalf of your government there.
Lots of interactions with the private sector. We actually won some best practice awards for public-private partnerships with Trell Systems. Also, a spaceport project. I think I talked to you a little bit about that. I recognize you're not going to do a spaceport in Seminole, but I've had the luxury of working with SpaceX, Blue Origin, Bill Gates, some companies associated with Bill Gates as well. So all that's private sector driven. So work very closely with the private sector for what we have, what I call a one-dimensional economy, but to create more than just that, like we're doing in Camden and other places. So lots of interaction with the private sector. That's really where it's at. You just engage the private sector, but also some of the philosophies and those best practices you can actually implement in government. Government was never designed to be efficient, but I work very hard to make sure that it becomes efficient and effective with a team approach. So there's a lot of best practices that you can look at in the private sector to benchmark performance measurements and those kind of things to actually implement in Seminole or anywhere else you would around the country. But I work closely with the private sector in a variety of ways to actually engage them and to do that, and have learned a whole lot from the private sector engagement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A follow-up, please.
Go right ahead.
Tell me about the value you find in having the private sector sit in on committees and give advice to the local government. Is that something you embrace? And if so, how have you facilitated that?
Yeah, I think you embrace it. We have a lot, where we're at, we have a lot of talent because of Kings Bay Naval Base, a lot of retirees. We have Lockheed Martin, some of the largest companies of all. To get those to the table is really important because those are assets, untapped assets, that you can actually utilize to big picture thinking, process thinking, a lot of things in the private sector you don't do in the government side. So that's important to tap that talent and get them to the table. But we've done that in a variety of things with committees, spaceport. We have a spaceport committee that we actually put together with the private sector, an educational committee that we've done as well. With our comp plan, obviously, we're bringing the private sector into that. But all those things are really, really important to bring the private sector inside of government to try to get those best practices that they're doing in the private sector. Can we implement that in the government arena as well? But absolutely.
Great, thank you. Nothing else at this time.
Thank you. Next. Any other commissioners have any other questions? Commissioner Lockhart?
Sure. Talk to me about leadership versus management.
Well, I always say management gets the horse to the water, leadership gets it to drink. So there's a difference in management and leadership. So that's important. You want to inspire, you're looking for leadership. You want to set the course for best practices, the best that we can be. You're looking for leadership. It also starts up here with this board at the top. I mean, it's got to start at the top and come down, and that's really important. You set policy, we implement that policy, but there's a big difference, and I think I told you all that. If you're looking for a manager, I'm out. If you're looking for a leader, I'm in if I was selected. That's important to me. But leadership's different. It's as simple as that. When I say that, it's that easy with the leadership question.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Constantine?
Not yet, I was waiting to see somebody.
Commissioner Herr, you just reached into the mic, that's all.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm
He did look like he was reaching for me. I'm going to pick up where that question left off, or where that answer left off. Give us an example of your leadership style and how it led to an outcome.
Well, I think there's a variety, actually pay plan classification study we just got approved Tuesday when I was actually here, but part of that was working with the board in a leadership position to actually get that, carry that over the finish line, to get that accomplished with input from the board, but actually to solve that. A variety of things. We've done big scale projects, but that's leadership to actually take it within the strategic plan to get that done. I'm going to go back to the spaceport again. This permit, in order to get this permit to launch rockets, it took leadership. You can give up, but you have to have the courage to create change. So that's very important at this level of this board to be able to delegate that down to staff. But all those are good examples of doing just that.
Commissioner Lockhart?
So follow up, and this is not a side stick show thing we had going here. This is just kind of organically happening here. When you talk about having the courage to create change, I know that I shared with you in our meeting that there are lots of opportunities for change leadership here, and it does start with this board. So whether it's a blessing or a curse, county managers have the opportunity to help lead their county commissions toward either toward togetherness, toward working together and unification, or not. And so can you share specifically how you would work with a county commission to help us be effective in our roles and responsibilities?
Well, it starts with a plan, and I think I gave you all my little strategic planning book, but it'll start with action items over a 12-month period. But we have to come together and determine what those focus areas are. What's that action agenda going to look like? Because we have to have a target. I know one of the commissioners in his office, amazing things that he has in that office, but he had to, if you're shooting at something, you have to have a target to shoot at. There you go.
That would be me.
So, or you'll shoot at anything.
Amazing
So
things.
it's very valuable,
Hidden things.
for a government to do that. Most don't do it. Most talk about it. Hope is not a plan. It doesn't replace management, but it increases your chances of getting it right. So that's pretty important. So those focus areas then become targets for staff to get that accomplished, which allows you all now to tell staff what direction to go in. And it's magic sauce. I've said that. It's amazing what it'll do. It allows for a variety of things to get accomplished that ultimately that doesn't happen. So those are things that need to be implemented, I think, immediately with this board to want to do that, take those steps. That's important, to me as well, that that consensus is there to move a county forward. You've got a plan, and hope is not a plan, and you've got to execute. It's amazing what you can accomplish if you stay focused and you have targets and you have the outcomes. Talked about the private sector. That's what you do in the private sector. I mean, you got to be able to do that. You're not in business. You're going to be out of business. Or government, and I call it, you tip up front. You got to pay these taxes. What's your return on investment? That's important for the citizens to be able to see that. That's critically important. But you got to have a plan. You got to follow it, and you need to focus on these 12 months increments, on these focus areas, and you'll get a lot accomplished. And people will come together. You'll receive that consensus. It's amazing what it'll do for you, the accomplishments that'll happen. And you got to dream big, and you got to dream bigger. And you can do this. It's not that it's challenging in the beginning. A lot of people don't want to do it and put the hard work in. But it's amazing what you'll accomplish if you just do the hard work up front. It'll be amazing for Seminole County.
Thank you. Next.
Mr. Howard, you have your community is approximately 54,000. Doesn't sound like it's, inundated with growth problems, but you also have a national seashore in your community. So how do you balance your growth with your environmental concerns and environmental impacts?
Well, part of that, you're planning what you want to be for this community. That's part of our focus areas within our strategic plan. We do balance that out. We have a national seashore. We have Kings Bay Naval Base, obviously about $1 billion worth of activity going on as we speak. So a lot of these activities are happening in growth, but you have to balance that out, but also the will of the people. What do they want? Your slogan here is Florida's a natural choice, so obviously that's important to this community, but you got to balance that out. And I think you got to hear all sides, but protect those resources, but balance it out. And part of that's planning, and to be able to put those action steps in place. Because if you don't, you'll get somewhere, but it won't be where you want to be at. So it's all driven back, again, to proper planning, strategic planning, action steps, and looking at this, or you'll end up somewhere you don't want to be at. So it's important to do that work up front.
That, if you don't mind, that begs the question. You have a naval base. How large is that naval base?
Very large. We have about 9,000 employees at that base. There's only two in the United States. It's the Trident subs, home to the Columbia class, actually, is what's coming on board next.
So that's about 18,000 folks in that base, live and work in that base?
About 9,000, but also there's more because of families. And
yeah.
Yes, it's a big economic engine for Camden, which we love the military. We love that. But one of the focus areas now is a one-dimensional economy. We want to expand that economy.
And that's what I was going to say. And most communities that have large naval bases and are small, they basically become the pseudo-government, as it were. What kind of interrelationship did you have? Not just with the spaceport or anything else, but I mean, did they govern themselves and then you governed the rest, or how did that relate?
We have like a joint land use plan, which we work with the military on and the DOD to be able to make sure that we work together collectively on growth issues. And actually, they'll play a role on conservation, actually put funding towards that. They have on multiple properties to secure that as well for them. So we work very close with the military, amazing relationship with them, with that base. But we actually have a motto called Every Day in Camden County is Military Appreciation Day. That's really important to us. But it's an economic engine that's amazing. And there's two things that are going to happen. It's really the nuclear subs are so amazing for America's national security. So that's the number one priority for the DOD. So to have that in Camden is a real blessing as well.
So in gross space, how much is owned by the military and U.S. government, and how much is of your total land size?
They have, I think they have about 27 square miles of Camden on that base, and we're over 600 square miles, the county itself. So they have a good, nice footprint, but there's lots of opportunity within Camden for continuing growth that's cohesive with naval operations.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
Thank you. Parks and recreation resources are very important to our community here. Tell us a little bit about your experience in parks and recreation in your current position.
We have a consolidated parks and recreation program for the county. So all the cities in the county actually co-share those expenses for that. I was actually had an opportunity to look at your sports complex and compliment you on that. I would continue to grow that. There's a new statistic out, actually last night, it's about a $109 billion industry. I've seen that, it's grown over 5%. So that's a big deal. That's a big, big opportunity for tourism dollars that I'd encourage you to expand those programs if you can. But we have a very strong relationship with that's called the Public Service Authority, with the cities with that, and actually in our master plan that they have actually is to actually create a sports complex, something like you have similar to what you have here. So we're actually on that same track, to actually do that. It'll be called Heroes Park.
Follow-up.
Go right ahead.
With that master plan, when did that master plan begin, and how are you working towards that goal? What stage are you currently in on
It's
that?
twofold. So the Public Service Authority, actually within their plan, they're working that too, but it's in our strategic plan for the Board of County Commissioners because it's that important to the Board of Commissioners. So the booklet I gave you, it's actually in that plan. So the next stage is property acquisition, and then a public-private partnership. Actually, we've got a company that's very interested in that will leverage private dollars. So that's ongoing as we speak, and a company's actually come forward. So it's possible, this could be within the next probably 36 months that you'd probably see activity.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Howard, what utility experiences do you have?
Very limited.
Okay.
It's privatized in Camden. The cities provide that, but currently I have nothing over that currently. I've worked with, municipalities and obviously Seminole and other roles that had bigger utilities, but directly no oversight.
Okay. Commissioner Herr?
I think one of the things that we talked about yesterday in the one-on-one discussion that stood out to me has not been talked about today, but it is in the document that you shared with us, and it's the strategic framework where you go from vision to plan to execution, and you talk about those 12-month increments. So would you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's important because most organizations plan 5 years, 10 years, and that's great, and you need to do all that. But 12 months is what you need to focus on because you get a lot of activity done. And just like here, I think in the last couple of days I was here, there's a lot of things out there. I'm not going to mention them all, but there's a lot of things out there that need to be addressed, like other governments. But if you focus on them in 12-month increments, you're going to get a lot accomplished, and this whole board will create those high priorities and top priorities. And you'll vote on it. You actually would come to consensus, and then we go out and then work that program, and then bring it back, performance measurements every 90 days. We'd look at it. We'd create a dashboard possibly, but it'd be amazing what would be accomplished over that time period than just looking at a strategic plan, putting it on the shelf, say you have it. You're actually working this program, but this whole board is looking at that yearly, and you're coming up with these focus areas.
Thank you.
With the government you're presently in, I'm sure there's been some type of construction, either with parks or roads or even buildings. What delivery methods have you chosen to deliver those by?
A variety of, actually in my career, a variety of things, and I got a purchasing background as well. But we work closely with the state for delivery of those projects. We have engineers outsourced and those kind of things, but a variety of things. We have purchasing that works with us, but I've done construction management at risk type concepts, design build. Sometimes we do some things in-house as well. We finished about a $100 million project, 4-lane highway, just cut the ribbon on it probably 4 or 5 months ago. So a variety of those things I've actually done. Interchange, that was done in the last 15 years since I've been there. With a partnership with the state, leveraging federal funds, but also a variety of other public-private opportunities that was instrumental in seeing that vision realized.
What about vertical construction?
Limited. We do some vertical construction buildings. I actually did a complex for the county, admin services building, remodeling of facilities and those things, but it's a variety of just typical bidding opportunities with construction contracts and things like that. You bid it out properly just like you do here in Seminole.
Any other questions? Commissioner Constantine.
Mr. Howard, you left here in 2007 and you went to Camden, correct?
Correct.
So you've been there 15 years.
That's correct.
5 years has been the county manager. What were the other positions that you held?
I've been the county manager for 15 years there.
So you've been the county manager the whole time?
The whole time.
I was confused by the chart that I was given.
Yeah,
It said
whole time.
So 15 years, you left here to become the county manager.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Any other questions?
You can ask him about his family.
I did before.
Any other questions?
I have
Want
none,
to?
sir.
We're going to close this if there's no other questions. Mr. Applegate?
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Appreciate the time, and we're going to
Take a 5-minute recess.
take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
sir.
much.
You'll have a good rest. I want to go
Thank
home
you.
and save my marriage. Today's my wife's birthday.
Happy birthday to her.
Please tell happy the BCC Special Meeting. Mr. Applegate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll turn it over to Bob for the final introduction.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, your next candidate is Terry Suggs, and Terry is currently the county manager for Putnam County, Florida. And without consuming any more of your time, I'll present Mr. Suggs.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
This will be your opportunity for an opening statement before we ask questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's great to be here this morning. It's great to be in Seminole County. Spent the last 3 days here, getting to meet a lot of folks here in Seminole County and revisiting with a lot of family and friends. So it's been a great opportunity for my wife and I to get a little bit of a chance to come back to what she would like to call home. So again, it was a great opportunity, and I'm looking forward to the questions here this morning. So I'm ready, folks. If you're ready, I'm ready.
Thank you. Commissioners? Commissioner Herr.
I'll start with the kickoff question of why Seminole County, and why are you the right person for Seminole County?
Excellent question. Can I rephrase it and say why not Seminole County? Because, this is what I found. I did my research. As you know, I've got a lot of history with some family here, and my wife being a resident here for about 15 years. But what I found talking to the constitutionalists, because I took a couple days and came down and met with the constitutionalists, a couple of folks from the different chambers and some citizens here, and what I found out was what a wonderful place Seminole County is. Everybody seems to have a collegial approach to getting problems solved and working together. When I did my research, what I found was your population, you've got 20% of your population works in the education field. You got another 20% that works in the healthcare and your professional industries, and about 1/25 of your folks work in local government. What a great foundation that you already have here to build upon the great things that are already here in Seminole County, which is education and professionalism. And you've got a great number of staff that actually support the services and those projects for those folks. So it was a great opportunity. Your tax base is absolutely wonderful. You had a 12% growth in property values this year. You've got a lot of projects going on. You've got a lot of issues that are coming to the forefront with some concerns we talked about in our one-on-one meetings. So we're looking for some solution-based, and I come from a history where I had to provide solution-based to a lot of issues. I come from Putnam County. We're not as blessed as a lot of counties are. When I took over in Putnam County, we barely had our 10% minimum in reserves. As our last annual fiscal report, we're around 21, 22%. So, I had to work hard to get there. We don't have those issues here, but that's some of the things I bring. I bring a lot of how we work together with a lot of different agencies and partnerships to get us to where we need to be. There's some issues I think that are here in Seminole County that we can pull from my experience as well. We've got a lot of great folks that work in Putnam County that I brought on board that we've already got working here. So I just think it's a great opportunity for Seminole County as well as for me to continue in the career path that I've chosen for the last 30 years. I've been in public service for nearly 30 years and all of that right here in the state of Florida.
Thank you. Commissioner Lockhart and then Commissioner Zimmer.
So one of the things that we talked about yesterday, or 2 days ago, I guess it was now, is the difference between coming from a community of the number of residents that you have in Putnam County to Seminole County that has now almost 500,000 residents, considerably larger workforce here in this community, in this our team as Seminole County government. And how would you scale? You shared a great attribute that you have in that you have an open door policy and you have citizens come and talk directly to you. How do you scale that to when you have 500,000 citizens?
Absolutely. I come from, right now, Putnam County has about 75,000 residents and about 350 employees. But I worked 14 years in Alachua County, a much larger county with a university system as well. So I've got 14 years of experience to pull from that as well. But you're right, I have an absolute open door policy, not only for my staff and the citizens and the commissioners, but those folks that have a genuine issue and a genuine concern. I'd rather work on an issue rather than a problem. So we've done that, and we've been very successful in that. And so when someone has an issue, they'll come directly to me if they can't get the services that that are required, and we fix those problems. I'll give a great example. I'm driving from here yesterday, and I get a citizen's call on my cell phone because they have my cell phone number, and it was about my building department. They turned in a request for a permit back in March, and they hadn't heard anything. Within about 15, 20 minutes, I had a response back, and so we just move forward with that. I give out my cell phone number, they have my email address, they know where I'm at. But what we've done also is I've had to reorganize my entire county structure. When I got to Putnam County, there were 22 individual departments that all function under the umbrella of the county administrator. And we found that that just wasn't a very viable way to conduct customer service and create efficiencies. So we've revamped that, and I've created 5 individual departments with subdivisions underneath them, with executive directors of each one, that now take on the same philosophy that I have, that will answer any questions not only internally from staff, but citizens as well as commissioners. So we got a much quicker turnaround time on communications and being able to solve problems and issues. Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Zimbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Yes, we agree. Seminole's a great place, great community. So specifically, and thank you for doing all your homework prior to coming in for your interviews and meeting with the other constitutionals in our community as well as some of the private sector folks. So on that note, specifically, with what you know now, what would you bring and what would you do to make Seminole County an even better place?
Absolutely. Great question. I think the biggest thing I would bring to the table is my ability to communicate, my ability to get the message and the vision and the mission of this 5-city member board out to my constitutionals as well as the citizens. I think it's very critical that we continue to build on that transparency and honesty and trust within our own organization as well as our community. Not only our constitutionals, but also our state leaders and our federal leaders, and just make sure that we get the clear message out. And that would be one of the things that I would do as county administrator. I have a deep relationship with my media folks. I answer all my calls. I put out the messages that need to be put out, and I communicate every day with those that need to know what's happening in Seminole County as I do in Putnam County. Transparency is key, and honesty and communication is key.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have one question, if I may. I think it's something to be complimented to go from 10% to 20% reserves. That's not an easy accomplishment because we struggle with that on a regular basis as well, just different numbers, but percentages. Now that you have that 20% reserves, and your budget should be somewhat formalized as we're getting towards the end of June. Will you be going into your reserves this year, or would you be putting money back into the reserves?
We'll put money back in the reserves. We have not touched our, when I got appointed almost 5 years ago, the first challenge of the Board of County Commissioners was we need to lower our millage rate, we need to balance our budget, and we got to stop using reserves because I'd used about $20 million in the previous 6 years to get to where they were. So we have not utilized any of our reserves to fund the reoccurring cost of doing business every day. Not only have we not done that, we've also lowered our millage rate. When I took over at the Putnam County, we were bumping up about 9.9 mills. We had nowhere else to go. We had to start looking at ways to create efficiencies and cut costs and do the things that we need to do in order to be a better, viable, sustainable government. So that's what we've done. Not only we've done that, we've brought in folks that created efficiencies in other departments. Our solid waste department, for example, when I got there, we were doing about 200 tons a day on a 1,500-acre permitted landfill. We're now doing about 600 tons a day. That's about $2 million extra in the revenues for that division. But we've also cut those solid waste fees for our citizens by $40 or between $40 and $50 already, and looking at doing a potential cut again this year. So we've always looked at those ways of how we're going to get back to where we need to be. And so we've done a lot of things by creating more efficiency in the way that we do our requests for services, whether it be a road project, whether it be a construction project, those type of things, so we could be more efficient. And so we've done those things. And one thing I'm most proud of is before I took over in Putnam County, staff hadn't had a raise in 11 years. 11 years. Cost of insurance have went up those 11 years, but no raises. This will be the 4th year that we've given a raise out. We're also combating the $15 hour minimum wage. we're not going to the $11 an hour this year. We're jumping up to $13. And to keep compression from being any worse than it already is, we're also giving folks a 5.38% raise that meets that threshold, to try to keep compression from getting any worse than what it already is.
On the financial side, what type of projects have you actually bonded, and what number limits are they at, and what is your bond rating?
Well, the sheriff's office was the big one. There's about $16 million worth of bond, and this is our bonding rate.
Yeah.
Our bond rate right now, if you're asking our classification, is an A bond rating. And when I was at the city of Palaca, our bond rating was an A- with some things that we've done there with our budget as well, and changing the way that we did some stuff at the city of Palaca, increasing our reserves there. We went from an A- to an A+ rating in my time at the city of Palaca. So we work really hard in financials. I'm very fiscally conservative as a manager. I look at ways that we can partner with private folks as well as our internal stakeholders to capitalize on wherever we can save those dollars at, and then return those dollars back to the general fund.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Herr?
Can you talk a little bit more about your time in Public Works and the experience that you had there that may benefit us?
Yes, ma'am. As you know, I started in Alachua County, spent 14 years there, was an operations manager in Public Works for Alachua County for several years. Also, in that role, was in solid waste as well, so I got a little bit of that background as well. And then it's funny you ask that question, because about 6 weeks ago, I lost my Public Works director in Putnam County. And so not only am I a county administrator, but I also took on the role as the interim director of Public Works. So we've got some issues that we've been dealing with in Public Works. So I figured the best way to approach that would to be the Public Works director as well as county administrator for a little while. And so I have an office set up out there that I share time with out there. So I get very hands-on. I'm not a micromanager, but I do believe in when there's a project that's laid out, we need to figure out what a timeline looks like, and we need to move forward with that project and that timeline. Not only is it for efficiency, but cost basis as well, because no one wants to pay CEI any more than they have to come in there and do an inspection after the time frame of the contract's expired. So I took that role on as well for a little while, but I'm hoping to advertise that one when I get back.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Could you talk to us about how you see the difference between leadership and management?
Absolutely. Leadership is the example that you provide to those that you work with and work for and oversee. And I believe that you have to lead by example. For example, Hurricane Irma hit. I'm sitting in the EOC. It was about 11 o'clock at night. Doors open up, and they say, "Where's Mr. Suggs?" And I'm sitting in the war room at the EOC. We had an issue with one of our 180-bed nursing homes that was starting to take on water on their first floor. And you're not moving patients in the middle of a storm, so we had to figure out something to do. So I'm out there in the middle of the storm with my fire rescue folks, with my Public Works folks. Yes, the county attorney was there, Mr. Applegate, to make sure that we stayed out of trouble. And we, Public Works, we opened up our topo maps and found a way to relieve that water. FWC cut us a trench, and an hour later, we saved a 180-bed facility. So absolutely, I think hands-on management is a way to set the right leadership. Now, management is making sure those folks that are responsible for doing the day-to-day operations understand what the proper vision and mission is of not only the Board of County Commissioners, but other county administrator. They got to understand what that is and buy into that mission to be very successful in what it is that they do. And it's my job as county administrator to make sure that happens.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I realize geographically where you all are located, so this may not be a completely fair question, and if not, please say so. But regionally, MPOs, transportation organizations, economic development, and I realize you're probably being siphoned by Duval County right there, next to you. What's your experience working with those regional partners on transportation, economic development, as well as your interaction with the private sector?
Absolutely. And it's not an unfair question. It's a question that all county administrators have to deal with, whether we're a small rural community or not. But you're right, we get siphoned off quite a bit. We're in District 2 of the DOT, which has Jacksonville in it. So we don't get as much support as I'd like to get out of the MTO, but that's okay. It's all right, because we take care of our own at home. And, but we started a project, when I got appointed 4.5 years ago, former Congressman Ted Yoho started an organization called Project Putnam. And what that was, he brought a lot of folks in, not only from the state level, but local government, agencies around the state, the education system, and that was absolutely formed to make sure that we were able to do the things that we need to do in Putnam County better than what we could get any assistance from. So what we did is we went to work, and it was a pillared structure. So one of the pillars was education. Dr. Rick Cerns is our superintendent of schools. At that point, our graduation rates in Putnam County hovered around 60-something%. Graduation this past week was at 92%. Okay? We went to work on economic development, and we went to work on trying to get our stakeholders involved. So what come out of that was 2 great projects. Our port project, I'm doing a barge port project. Our barge port has been sitting vacant for years in Putnam County. So what I've done is I've partnered with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, multiple trips to D.C. to the Pentagon to sell that project. We're now in phase 2 of that project. We had to get through the FID, which is your financial determination project. So we did that, and so now we're in phase 2, which is going to dredge our channel out, from our port, 125 feet to 11-foot depth, so we can get cargo ships in and out, those that don't want to go to Jacksonville or Jacksonville's too full, or other ports to assist us in that economic boom. But to do that, we have to raise a bridge. One of the bridge that separates us from the north is Shands Bridge, and it's too low to get anything under. So Congressman Yoho went to work and is now in the 5-year process, and they've already started construction to raise that bridge to 64 feet so we can get ships in and out. So it's been a major project that's been sold all the way up to D.C. from Putnam County that originated right here in my office, because that was one of the things that we had to do for economic development. We've also got our second U.S. Army Corps of Engineers grant, which goes to your holistic water concerns right here in Seminole County. As you know, we've got the St. Johns River that meanders throughout Putnam County. We've also got a lot of farmland and industrial properties, so we have to be very concerned about our water table. It's critical to everybody. So I pitched a project to the Army Corps 4 years ago. It was a project that actually had been started before I got there, but had been dropped off, and we were fixing to be deauthorized for the funding list at the congressional level, because after so many years of not being non-funded, it falls off. Went to D.C., met with Senator Rubio's office, who wrote us a letter to keep that project from being deauthorized. 2 years later, we got our phase 1 funding of $5 million. It's a 6-phase project to do an environmental water project along the St. Johns River to make sure we take care of those septic tanks and wells that flood every time there's an event. So should be getting the funding agreement on that any day now. Got an email for left to come down here from the Army Corps saying it's in the works. So that's another $30 million project. So we have to do those things in Putnam County because we don't have the monetary resources to do it ourselves.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Lockhart? Thank you, Mr. Constantine.
Quick follow-up on all of that discussion about approaching DC and Tallahassee and the revenue, the grant dollars that you've been able to accumulate. Do you have someone internal that does your lobbying, or are you doing that yourself? Do you have an outside firm?
It's a combination. I do a lot of it myself. I have a really good, strong relationship with my folks in Tallahassee, my Senator Keith Perry, my Representative Bobby Payne. I approached them about helping us with the barge port project, so they went to work this past legislature session, and they got a bill passed, and the governor signed it last week to get us a seat at the Florida Ports Council. So that was a huge step. So I do a lot of some of that homegrown stuff myself, but we have Southern Strategies that helps us out in Tallahassee, and I have a firm that helps me out in D.C., but it's me who goes to D.C., and it's me who meets with those folks along with our lobbyists. My commissioners have pushed for me to go to be part of those meetings so they can get the true meaning of how valuable this project would be in Putnam County.
Thank you. Commissioner Constantine?
Thank you. Terry, your knowledge of Florida, I think, of the three candidates is impressive, and I've worked with you in the past on some things. Talk to me. I know that you've had some internal issues within Putnam County. Would you like to, kind of like talk a little bit about that?
No. I'll answer for him, no.
I can. And I'm standing.
I don't want to put you in a difficult situation, but I want
You did.
I want an answer.
Let me be very honest with you. One of the concerns I would think that you find would have is, does your next county administrator or manager, as it is here, is he looking for his next position? Is he looking for his next job? Is he looking for an opportunity to pad his resume to move on to somewhere else? When I moved into Putnam County, I moved into Putnam County 7 years ago. City manager of Palaca, which is the county seat of Putnam County. I was there 2.5 years. A 16-year county administrator retired, and so they've asked me if I would consider applying. I applied. I'm fortunate enough to be appointed 4.5 years ago. My wife and I bought a house on the St. Johns River, remodeled it because we're like, you know what? I'll be 57 years old next month, so I've got about 8 to 10 good years left in me. This probably will be our last job because I've never had a job I've ever been asked to leave. Okay, I've been very fortunate, in 25 years. Okay, so we figured, okay, this is home. It was 30 minutes from where my wife grew up. I've been fortunate enough to live in the area within 50 miles of where I grew up. This was going to be our last stop. Okay. Political change comes. We all know what political change brings. I had a solid 5-0 vote, followed by an election where I went to a 4-1, followed by an election 2 years later where I'm at a 3-2, and I got 2 sitting commissioners that are actively campaigning against the third one to make change. Folks, it don't take rocket science to figure out I live on a 3-2 vote, okay? And no matter what good you've done, no matter what kind of job you've created, what type of succession plan or positive stuff you've made in your community, it takes a 3-2 vote, okay? And yes, I am absolutely sitting there today knowing that my election come August, there could be another major change sitting on my board, and I went from a 5-0 vote 5 years ago to a potential 3-2 vote on the wrong side come August or November. Okay? This is my chosen field of profession. I love what I do. I didn't plan on being a county administrator. I worked for Alachua County for 14 years and realized that I'm going about as far as I'm going to go if I don't go back and get me some education, get me a college degree. So at the age of 40, I went back to school, and I got a bachelor's degree. I graduated. I waited for grades to be posted in July. Graduated in August, got my first city manager's job in September of that year. Okay? 2 years later, working full-time, raising a family, went back to school and got my master's degree. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted it. I'm a continual learning type of individual. So I've constantly been trying to put myself in a better position to move forward, to lead organizations such as this one. That's a great organization. So when you look at my resume and my background, there's no questions, there's no concerns in it. But Commissioner Constantine, to answer your question, absolutely, sir. There's some issues that I need to be aware of, and I'm standing here in front of you today being very honest about it.
Mr. Constantine, as a follow-up.
But so Terry, the reason I did that is because I wanted to hear the answer that I knew you were going to give, because the fact of the matter is, it wasn't anything about job-related. It's the trends in what is going on, which we all understand as political operatives up here in one form or another, is going on in Florida. So, I mean, that was, I wanted to clear that up. Now, saying that, what do you consider your single best asset?
My ability to communicate and get along with folks, because no matter how bad it's been for 3 years, and it has been documented well that it's been difficult, I have been extremely professional. I treat all my commissioners equally, and I make sure that everybody has the same information to make the best informed decision they can make for their community. My job is not dependent upon whether I like somebody or I'm liked. My job is dependent to make sure I do the best job I can for all 5 elected officials to support those 5 folks or those staff members sitting in the audience and my folks in my community. I am that buffer between those commissioners and my staff. And I'm going to tell you, it's been difficult from time to time. My staff will tell you that I've done an excellent job, and they love me for that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Applegate?
Thank you, Terry, and thank you for the time. Bob, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Suggs.
Mr.
Thank you,
Applegate?
folks, for this
I'd like to take a 5
opportunity, and I know you got a difficult decision ahead of you. I wish you nothing but Godspeed and the best decision that you can make, and we look forward to hearing from you in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Terry.
Mr. Applegate, before we move on to the public, we'd like to take a 5-minute recess.
Sure.
Okay? Okay? You're never okay? Okay, thank you. I'd like to reconvene the meeting. Mr. Applegate?
Now, we have time for public comment.
Okay, so we're asking people from the public,
All right.
they'll be given 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Please fill out the speaker form. If you haven't filled out the speaker form, please do that now. Shani, do we have any speaker forms?
Yes, sir. Nancy Harmon.
Okay. And when you do come to the podium, please give us your name and address for the record.
And while she's doing that, Mr. Chairman, for the record, I know that you've all received and read, and that the clerk has a copy of a statement submitted by Cynthia Haller.
Would somebody want to read that in?
Well, you've all read it, if you state that you've
fine
read
with
it.
that.
and then-
I'm going to ask for Geneva Citizens Association President, 6 minutes.
So you have to ask the chairman.
I'm speaking on behalf of Geneva Citizens Association. I'm the president of the association.
You'll be given 6 minutes then, but
Thank
you'll be
you.
the only one speaking for the
Can you hear
Genevas.
me with this on? Because
Yes,
I
we
don't
can.
want to put it on the mic. Okay. I appreciate the opportunity. Oh, Nancy Harmon, 752 Pioneer Way, Geneva, Florida. I appreciate the opportunity today. I'm glad I was able to come and listen. I listened to each one of the candidates, not having seen their resumes, but I was Googling their stuff and that. And I think at least 2 of them would be great deputies. As I looked at the first applicant, Doc, I thought he, he's a very nice person had some great experience and opportunities, but he's so limited in his experience that it just seems to me, when you're looking at our community, specifically in our area, and understanding it, to stand up and say, I love the rural boundary, is a great thing anybody can say. I can say that all day long. But unless you've had a situation where you've worked in communities where you have had to protect ruralness and rural people and quality of life and lifestyles, I don't think you have a great ability to embrace what that really means, other than to read a paper and say it's beautiful, because it is. But where he lives, he doesn't have that opportunity, and his experience does not reflect that he has that opportunity, except that he's been a Parks and Recreations manager, which is great, but it's only how you're going to spend the money if the county gives it to you if you were in that job. So then I went on to Mr. Howard, and he did a great job with Spaceport. He's worked very hard to create an economic issue or situation for them, but I didn't find that he did anything on environment. If you look at the environment in Camden, Georgia, it sucks. If you look at the people, I've lived in Camden, Georgia. I worked at Kings Bay. I can tell you it's a hole, and I'll say that politely as best I can. The people do not live in Camden mostly. They live in Jacksonville. They drive an hour every day. Those that live there are good old boys. That's the way it is. And if you listen to his, as Commissioner Zimbauer was asking him about his relationship with industry, he's an industry man. He's worked very hard with industry to get what he wants. And he was the executive of Spaceport the whole time, pretty much, that he was their administrator. I have an issue with that. I think that's a conflict of interest. I don't think that was very professional. Plus, his experience for our community, not there, just not there. Mr. Suggs, I liked him as a person. I think his honesty, I think you all asked him the hardest questions of all candidates. I think he came across well. Again, yeah, his experience is limited, but if I were to have to pick a person as a deputy administrator, he would be my choice, because he has some experience we need, grant writing. He has experience with going to D.C. He has experience with working with St. John's and with the Corps of Army Engineers. That's stuff that's very important for us because, as he said, water is an issue. That's our issue. I mean, if we don't have water, who cares if we have a condominium or a rural boundary? So I also have some input from Smart Development folks. And basically, their statement was, we're interested in quality life over meeting population projections. We're interested in the fact that the relationships between developers and citizens needs to be stronger from the standpoint of we all need to respect each other and we need to understand property rights and do things that benefit us both, not just one-sided. Which kind of takes me back to Mr. Howard and some of the relationship there that he spoke of, is when you're in bed with Lockheed Martin, you are not in bed with the community. Trust me, I've worked for the government. I know what that means. To wrap it up, I think that we're still focusing on clean water, wildlife recreation, and quality of life. And again, it's not about not allowing building, because we need homes. We absolutely need homes for people. And we love the fact we have an urban core. But in the conversations that came with these individuals, and perhaps it's your questions, perhaps you've had plenty of conversation with them in your office, which we have not been exposed to. But I'm going to go back to my statement, which is, as deputy, I think these individuals perhaps would be a great opportunity to grow, and to grow into a city manager, our county manager, county, not city, not administrator. But for us, I think it would be great if the county would go back out and revise, do whatever you have to do to get better applicants. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Nancy, before you leave the podium, any questions for Nancy?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make sure, that's all. Thank you. Hope you feel better. Janie, next.
No more speaker forms, sir.
Is there anyone else in the audience that'd like to speak to the board? Anyone else? Before I close public comments, anyone else in the audience? At this time, we're going to close public comments. Public comments is now closed. Mr. Applegate?
In talking to all five of you individually, a question has come up. Can you discuss this today as opposed to next Tuesday? Again, you've heard my standard response. It's up to at least three of you to decide how you want to proceed. And I'll let you have that discussion. We'll see how it goes from there. Paul, I know we talked about process.
Yes, process-wise, you have the ability to move forward today and make a decision if you would like. And when it comes back on the 14th, if your decision today is to choose one of the individuals, then we can negotiate with them and hopefully have a final contract for your consideration on Tuesday. If your decision is to go in a different direction, you can make that decision today, and that would make Tuesday's meeting or discussion of county manager moot if you wrap up those discussions and give us different direction today. So that's the layout of the playing field if there's any questions.
Commissioner Lockhart.
So I know I was the one of us that pushed to ask to have a breather, a break between these public interviews and public comment, and then give us some time to get feedback from staff and, so I guess if there is question or concern about the process that we had initiated and changing that process, from as far as my colleagues are concerned, I want you to know, since I was the one that was pushing for that, if the majority of the board is comfortable with having discussion today about next steps, I'm okay with that at this point. But I didn't want you to feel like wanting to change that would somehow make me feel like the process was changed on me. So
I, for one, have no problem discussing it today, and I can tell you exactly how I feel if you want me to.
I have no problem with that as well.
Agreed.
I think the consensus is that we're going to discuss it today.
we're here.
Yeah, we're here now. The question I would have, do you want to take a lunch break and come back, or, I don't know if
No, I
anybody
think,
wants to.
in my opinion, I think we have enough time between now
Okay.
and the lunch break.
Okay.
So we could just end the meeting and be done with it. I, for one, it's how I feel. I mean, I want to thank all the applicants, and I also want to thank Bob Slavin for his hard work in trying to get us individuals to interview. I think everyone is interviewed well. I just feel that the fit from the three people that we've interviewed, or I've interviewed, as well as we all have interviewed, I don't think it's the right fit, and I'd like to go back out on the street. That's how I feel about it. Commissioner Zimbow.
I would say I enjoyed interacting with all of these candidates. I think they're all good people. I think they are good at what they do. But I struggle with where we want to be as a county, and taking us to the next level. And to me, although these candidates could do a job, I don't know that there's one as a superstar that would just reach us up and pull us to the next level that we need to go at this point. I think there's potential they may get there one day. I think our need is closer than that may occur. So I would ask staff, bring us back options of where we go from here, maybe at Tuesday's meeting, and if the chairman could set aside maybe an hour or so for us to
If the board
discuss that.
wants to go there, we can definitely put an add-on on the agenda if the board wants to do that. Or we can put it on the, I would put it on an add-on under the county manager's report or the county attorney's report, one of those two.
All right, county manager report would be.
One of those two.
Sure.
But if that's what the board, Commissioner Lockhart.
So I also enjoyed meeting all three of these candidates. I think they are delightful men, and they all have a lot that they've done, that they've accomplished in their communities, and there's probably a lot that they could do and accomplish here as well. But for this time, in this organization, and what our needs are, I don't see the fit being there. I would like to not just go out for a new search. I'd like to go out for a new search firm and start back at that beginning phase, which I know may take a little bit longer, but in terms of giving direction to staff for coming back with options, I think we need to have a broader look at the search firm choices and start there would be my request.
Commissioner Zimbow, I'm not disagreeing with you, but Commissioner Zimbow.
Totally understand. What I would say is staff bring back, I don't disagree with Commissioner Lockhart's statement, but we may need to have discussion perhaps about interim, and that's what I'm referring to. If we're not going to make a pick today, I would like to have all of our discussion of where we're at now, where we're moving to, and what process we would move forward in trying to recruit someone. And I think that's important for our senior staff to address that hand in hand, so we're not continuing to labor our senior staff as we have been.
Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner Herr, then Commissioner Constantine.
So I agree with everything that's been said so far, and therefore don't feel compelled to repeat it. What I would say is that in addition to starting at the beginning in terms of the search for a search firm, we actually need to establish a process on our end for this event. And I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm going to resurrect the horse to talk about it again. And a lot of where we are is because we thought the search firm should have the process established. I think the search firm thought we should have the process established. And it goes back to the very beginning of letting an RFP out for a firm. That well needs to be primed. And then the well needs to be primed for candidates. This is a sales opportunity 101, and you got to build a funnel. And our funnel was not built from the very beginning of the process. So we really need to rethink it internally so that we execute on our side with excellence, which will create an excellent outcome. I think we missed the boat on this from the very beginning, and that's on us, not on the firm, not on the candidates, not on those that applied. It's on us.
Agreed 100%.
Commissioner Constantine?
So, again, I'm not going to repeat everything that everyone has said because I think that there's consensus here. I do believe, and I think others have already stated this, that these were fine people, wonderful people. great deal of integrity. I know I could have worked with any one of them, but like the rest of you, each one of us was looking for, if you will, inspiration, challenge, innovation, vision, whatever you want to call it. I didn't see the fit either. I think that what we want to do, and I think we've all probably talked to the staff about this moving forward as far as internally. I think that it has been stabilized with Mr. Applegate and the other staff, county managers and assistant county managers. I know that they've all got a work burden, but I feel comfortable in what they're doing right now, and that they could continue doing it. I do believe that we need to, in addressing Commissioner Herr, I think that we need the staff to come back with a recommendation as to how we move forward, and us sitting down and discussing that and seeing if that jives with what we see as the potential. But I do believe that with all due respect to the three candidates, I think we all have the same consensus feeling that we want someone that is going to help bring us to the next level. And so I will make, if you wish, Mr. Chairman, that motion. I
think a motion is appropriate, correct, Mr. Applegate?
That first, that we thank very much the candidates that were here, appreciate their time and effort, but that we are not choosing any three. Thank Mr. Slavin for his hard work and effort, and then ask the staff to come back with a recommendation on Tuesday as to how we proceed further.
Is there a motion to that?
That was the motion.
That was the
Second.
motion.
I'm sorry.
Say, was that the motion?
That was the
That was the
motion. I'll
motion.
That was
second.
the motion.
Yes.
Is there a
The
second?
flowery motion.
Second.
Okay, second. Any discussion on that motion before we go there?
Okay.
I want to make sure we're clear. Any discussion on that motion?
No, sir.
Mr. Applegate, do you believe it's clear?
I do. I just want to make sure that if I could suggest that we do set a time on the agenda, a future agenda, for you all to share what you would like the process to be. And then once we get a clear picture of that, that would help us with going out for an RFP. And, that's my thought. And
If I can, Mr. Chairman.
Well, since it's your motion,
Yeah.
please.
Well, I think that what I indicated, we need to start with something. We could change it, but we need to start with something. That's why I suggested that the staff bring back a recommendation. I really felt that Tuesday was the day that we would sit down and give pro, con, wherever we're going, and then we will come with a consensus on how we move forward. But I wanted to give the staff the ability to bring forth a paper, a document, whatever that might be, as to how we move forward. That we can, a white paper as to how we move forward, and then we can discuss it at the meeting on Tuesday. That was where the motion was coming.
Commissioner Herr?
Just so that nobody's having a stroke in the back of the room. A one-pager and a white paper are two entirely different things. So I, for purposes of what I think we're trying to get to, I think we need an outline. Let's just use
Okay.
some basic language. An outline of, A, what we're going to do in the interim, because while I appreciate that one of us may be completely comfortable with the current, I'm not sure that everybody that needs to be completely comfortable with the current is completely comfortable with the current. We need an outline of what that looks like, to include a duration of how long we think that would last. And then B, we need an outline of what we think the next steps are for going to market for the consultant, and then going to market for candidates. It is about building the funnel. And it doesn't have to be, I think as Commissioner Constantine said, it doesn't have to be that detailed, but just some basics, including span of time and tactical steps that have to be taken.
And that's what I was asking for. Thank you.
Is that clear, Mr. Applegate?
That's very clear.
Okay, now we truly understand the motion. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Any order of business left to do today, Mr. Applegate?
No, sir. Well,
Well, I just have one that I think, maybe this doesn't happen in government, and maybe it should. I do believe that we should have HR send out a thank you letter to the candidates. We said some nice things about them here. It would be nice for them to have a letter that closes, puts a period at the end of this sentence nicely.
I have no objections. Does anybody have objections to that?
My office was going to send out thank yous, but I'm happy to have.
We should send out one letter.
Yeah.
All five of us
Send out
sign
one
it.
letter.
We'll be fine. Mr. Applegate, anything else?
no, sir.
Mr. Chiplock, anything else?
Not at this time.
Any other comments from the board? Meeting's now adjourned. Thank you.